All right, welcome to Semper Sometimes with Benny. So right now I have Miss Debbie with us, and she's part of a nonprofit organization. She's going to talk about the nonprofit organization. It is Race to Erase 22. And just like the whole starting of this podcast was word of mouth. And one of my episodes introduced us and said, hey, it'd be great to hear from her as well. So that's what I'm doing. And really, like I said to you guys before, is just the whole purpose of my podcast is to just get the veteran services out there to people, make sure that people know what's available to them in their communities. This one's coming from Las Vegas. So she's gonna, start off with just describing to us, what is it about, who is she, how did it get founded? So without further ado, welcome, Debbie. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come on with us.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. So, we appreciate you inviting us to be here tonight.
Yeah, thank you. So can you just tell us a little bit about, before we get into the nonprofit and get into that, what give us a kind of a background on you and your husband and the founder and the co-founder, I guess. And then also really just, we'll get into like what drove you to create it, and we'll go from there. So just start off with just, who is Debbie?
Who's Debbie? That's a loaded question. But actually, I'm born and raised Las Vegas as well as my husband. And my family was in the gaming industry here in Las Vegas. My dad opened up the Sahara Hotel. And my husband, Bill, his father was at the Desert Inn for many, many years, as well as many members of his family. So just Las Vegas, desert rats is what we like to call us. And now I work, I've had many jobs over the years, but actually I've been in the legal industry for 35 years. I'm an administrator or office manager, whatever you would call it, with a national law firm called Boyes, Schiller, Flexner. And I'm in the Las Vegas office. My husband is a retired Teamster, so he's always fought for people. He fought for his union members and their jobs, and now he fights for veterans in active duty and first responders.
Oh, awesome. So so how long was he in the military?
No, he was not.
Okay.
We came from military families. My father, a Marine veteran, served during World War II. His father, a Korean War veteran.
Hmm.
My brother, a Navy JAG officer, and many of our uncles. My cousin was a Navy nurse in the Navy. So a lot of our family members served, and that's kind of how we feel like we're giving back. We both of us, neither one of us served our
Okay.
country, but we feel that how we can give back and thank those who've served is
Hmm.
what we're doing now.
Okay. So what I guess the question would be, since neither of you are veterans, what kind of put it on your heart to create a veteran, something for veterans and for first responders? Like how did that all happen?
Well, I mean, well, actually, both of us have always been very proud of our military and our country, and very, patriotic, I guess you would say.
Hmm.
But we were helping another organization who were helping wounded veterans who served in Afghanistan and Iraq in a program. They had a program, and so we got very involved with that for several years. And when we saw the true difference, that just by offering, different options for when you get out, for transitioning out of your service, and truly just being able to provide them a new support system and a new group to hang out with, really is what it was. Um, we saw where it truly saved some lives. And when that organization decided not to come out west anymore, I looked at my husband and our friends. And I thought, okay, we have to continuing this, mission somehow. Um, and that's how we really got involved in it. I just feel like, you know, you guys, I'm not going to say you as well, you sacrifice everything and sacrifice so much so that we can have the freedoms that we have. And I believe that wholeheartedly, and I know my husband does and all of our volunteers. So if we can just give back a small ounce of something, provide some way to show our appreciation and our grateful that we are grateful, and there are millions of Americans in our country that are a grateful nation. That's what we're going to do.
Okay, awesome. So what services do you provide? what's the purpose of the nonprofit, what's the purpose of the program, like if you can just give us a background on it, and just, from the beginning, like how did it start, and what's the groundbreaking information, and what is someone looking at when they look at you guys?
So what we, like I said, when we started, we were helping another organization, and that one stopped coming out here. So
Yeah.
I, we were told, hey, listen, we'll help you if you can create another, another organization.
Hmm.
So I did a lot of research and looked, and I'd always heard about the number 22 and how it relates to veteran suicide. But
Yeah.
to be honest with you, it didn't ring, well, it didn't resonate. I saw a number. I didn't
Yeah.
think of real people, which is horrible to say, but it's true.
Yeah.
My honest story is that I had no idea until I did research. And then I
Hmm.
met families of those who've lost people to a
Mm.
military, active duty, and veterans to suicide.
Yeah.
And then we lost our best friend to suicide
Oh,
several
wow.
years. Not military,
Yeah,
but
but still.
still, it's a huge loss.
Yeah.
And, it just, there were so many emotions involved. So when we learned that the number that came out with the VA in 2016 was 22 veterans a day, one active duty. Now that's a report written by the VA, and I know it's not even close. I mean, the number was a lot higher at that time, but it doesn't matter. One is one too many,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be that way. So that's kind of how we decided to go with Race 2 or Race 22. That was going to be our mission. We need to first, because we're civilians, raise awareness about the horrific tragedy of how many we lose a day.
Yeah.
And then we provide resources and information that's available to those in need. Because that seems to be a lot of the disconnect. And often when I talk out in the community to other veteran organizations or to veterans or active duty or first responders is, well, how do I don't know about that? How do you do that? Or this, and I thought
Yeah.
that's it's not like when when you get out, when you're transitioning out of your service, that there's this long meeting that they say, okay, this is all these different organizations. I don't think that happens. I
So
believe the Air Force
we,
is kind of
so
doing it
we
now.
no, so we when you get out, you do have a transition period.
Yeah.
Like, so I just went through it. Now normally when you were on active duty before pre-COVID, you actually have to go to a seminar. It's like a week long. You go through different classes, you learn about business, you learn about writing a resume, you learn about, they do have classes about suicide prevention and about, hey, if you feel this way, make a call and stuff like that. But it's very like the cliche terms, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, and then because of COVID, when I was transitioning out, I was transitioning out during like the height of COVID. So mine was just virtual. They literally sent me a link and they were like, hey, click through this PowerPoint, and when you're done with it, send us the certificate and you're done. So I
Yeah.
literally went through the whole thing in like 5 hours, and I was done. And then I just sat around my office building waiting to get out of the Marine Corps. And and that's another reason, like I said in the beginning, like that's why I want to have, I'm really trying to find people like yourself, out here on the podcast, because at the end of the day, to me, it doesn't matter whether if I can make this into a business one day, great, that'd be awesome, right? But
Hmm.
the thing about it is getting people to understand, okay, that there are avenues for you to go, because a lot of people have that feeling of, okay, well, and I'll be honest, I'm currently going through it now. I went from being on recruiting duty with the same five guys for 4 straight years in an office where they were to my left and right of me all day long. And now yeah, I'm home, I'm with my family and stuff, and I'm back to, living the normal life, as people would call it, I guess. But it's such a different thing for me. Like I'm in a civilian job where I'm surrounded by, not this is a bad thing, but like I went from being around four Marines disgruntled and aggravated to now women who are like, oh my God. And it's like, okay, we're talking about pumpkin spice lattes. And I went from, so it's a totally different lifestyle, and it's a totally different. And, I was talking to one of my, I actually had a what do you call it? A virtual interview with the VA today,
Okay.
and they were asking me questions about like whether PTSD and stuff like that. And a lot of it, I'm not gonna lie to you, a lot of it, when a lot of the questions, I was like, no. And then all of a sudden, as they kept asking, I was like, okay, well, maybe, yeah, maybe I can see that. And I can see that.
Yeah.
And then the more and more you start thinking about it, you're like, okay, well, actually, these are some things that I am going through or didn't realize. And, but really, it's just, a lot of people don't find, they don't understand what's available to them. And yeah, and a lot of people, it's funny because like when I was on recruiting duty, I remember, and that would happen all the time. I would bump into people and I would start talking to them about the Marine Corps. And I remember one day I strolled into the school that I hadn't been in years, and actually I'd never been in, sorry. And a buddy of, and I had the reason why I never went to the school was because I always heard that the school doesn't join. Kids from that school don't join, don't waste your time. And it was a very long drive.
Yeah.
So long story short, my buddy Morales was like, hey man, aren't we like 15 minutes from that school that nobody ever joins at? I was like, we are. And he was like, well, why don't we just go show up, dude? He's like, what's the worst that's gonna happen? So we show up and literally we walk on the door, and it was a Navy ROTC program. And the Navy chief looks at me and she just goes, Staff Sergeant. I was like, yes, ma'am. She goes, where have you guys been? It's been like 4 years since someone
Oh,
showed up here. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, you want us here? And
oh,
she's like, yeah. And so, long story short, she ends up calling one of her students down, and she's like, yeah, he wants to be a Marine. So the kid comes down the stairs. I start talking to him. I'm like, hey, man, I'm like, so if you've wanted to be a Marine for all this time, like, why haven't you gone online? Or he goes, I didn't know how. Like, literally. And I was just like, in a world in which we have our phones everywhere, like, you're on it. And I was just like, and that's the thing is like, there's so much at our fingertips, but sometimes we just don't want to do the work to find it. And unfortunately, a lot of times people just don't realize that there's a lot of things around them, especially in their community. Like, you find out about things all the time, and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that was like down the street, oh, wow, this great pizza place or this great whatever it is. And it's a lot of word of mouth. But, as I was getting out of the Marine Corps, one of the reasons why I started the podcast was when I was going through my transition, back to the reserve program and out of the off of active duty, I realized that like in the Marine Corps and in the military, and I can't speak for other branches, but we have suicide prevention classes, and all it is a PowerPoint and a video with some really bad acting. And it's like, hey man, stop this from happening. You should know the signs. And it's like, all right, cool, man. Like, got that. And then unfortunately, and again, I've said this on other episodes, like, I'm sure that when this began, it began from a place of, heart, and it had all the right intentions, but now it's just become, hey, initial here, sign here, you got this training. And I think, and my goal here is to one day replace that with this, because you're someone who has dealt with suicide closely. You've known someone who's so you can tell the story of how it felt for you, how you dealt with it emotionally, physically, mentally. And then when I have people on here who talk about how they almost committed suicide, they can talk from their own skin of a reality story. Because I find that when people talk about reality, people actually are listening, but when it's someone acting on a screen, it's like, okay, I know
it's
it's not real.
it's unrelatable. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not. It doesn't bring on the, and you can't trust it. It's just something that's like was made up by a script.
yeah.
Where, like you said, when you hear someone really talking a real life experience, I think it opens up trust. A
Hmm.
trust conversation, and that's what we need. We need real conversations, not PowerPoints. That's all good, maybe initially, but we really need some real conversations so that people can feel like they can open up and share and not be judged.
Yeah,
Because all too often the stigma is really what has been holding people back for getting help. Is for all people, not just military, humans in general. You know, we've been told, oh no, you can't. They're crazy, blah blah blah. Don't talk about it. When it's just we all have mental health issues. I don't
yeah,
care who you are, what you do. There's
yeah,
points in your life where you've had a time where you just going, how can I go on? And so we're hoping that we can first let people know, hey, you're okay. This is normal to have these kind of feelings, really, especially for what you've been through, serving your country and what you've seen. You can't unsee many of the things, especially in combat, what you've seen. So we're trying to share those coping there's different coping mechanisms, or not mechanisms, but ways to cope. There's different groups, different organizations, so many tools that you can have in your tool belt that will help get you through to the next day. And that's what we want, keeping your foot, one foot in front of the other and moving on to a new day, because there's always a new day. So, hopefully, so that's what we really try, to share those resources, because there's great ones locally as well as nationally that are available. It's just getting that information out to people. We're not trying to recreate the wheel. We're not trying to start this new thing. We're just trying to let people shine a light. It's like just putting a beacon of light out there, a beacon of hope. Like, this is what's out here, this is what's out here. And there's something for everybody, because there's not a one shoe fits all, kind of option. We started really through off-road racing, because that's where we come from, off-road racing background. And that's the organization we were helping. That's what they were doing. They had motorcycles, off-road racing truck, and they'd give the opportunity to wounded veterans a chance to be a co-driver in an off-road vehicle, feel that adrenaline rush. But more importantly, I got to say, it's just the teamwork. You're all together, a cohesive unit, working to complete a mission to finish the race.
Mhm.
And that kind of directly correlated with serving in the military, is what we've been told, and time again. So we were doing that, and then we were providing opportunities, Jeep adventures. So we take groups of veterans, active duty, and first responders too. We're including, because their rate of suicide and the mental health crisis that they're having uh, is very high. So we want anybody walking into the fire, walking towards danger,
Yeah.
so to protect us, is who we're trying to help. So we're taking veterans, giving them an opportunity to get in a Jeep or a 4x4, and get out in nature and go rock climbing. We last year in January, I think was our second year with the winter 4x4 jamboree in Utah. We took about 15 people up there, and it was 4 days of trail riding every day, 3 or 4 hours. And then we provided all the housing. There's no cost to anybody to participate with us. So that just gave them an opportunity to experience outdoor recreation, which is highly successful in helping with your mental health and your physical health. So we do that. UTV rides. So we provide those. We have several. We have a couple in here in our shop, but other volunteers provide theirs. People step up, and we say, "Hey, we want to take a group of veterans out for an off-road adventure." The people just raise their hands. They want to know, how can I help and when, and it's a wonderful response. So we do those kind of activities just to get people out of their house, just to and to network. Again, we're trying to create new networks, and that's why we involve active duty, because we feel, listen, if we can get them involved, or maybe they can find a new passion, they'll be introduced to something new they've never tried before. So when they do get out, that could be a new support system for it. It's not new to them, actually, something they're familiar with, but when they get out, then they can connect with that group again. So it continues on, that um, relationship will continue on once you get out. So those are the kind of things we do, as far as that's where the race comes from.
Mhm.
But also we're racing against veteran suicide too. Racing against time, racing against whatever obstacles. We also do. We work on veteran legislation, federal and state legislation. I don't know if you know veteran Brian Talley, a Marine veteran, but he introduced legislation out of his own personal story, tragedy, that he had medical malpractice and went a year, almost actually a little over a year, with the VA, fighting with the VA to hold him accountable. And they accepted responsibility finally. But then it was like day 368, they'd called him up, the general counsel of the VA, and told him, listen, you know, come to find out, actually, the doctor who treated you was one of our vendors, a third party contractor. So there's a loophole in the law that says that if it's a third party contractor, the VA can't be held liable. So now this veteran who served his country and had actually got out of, not retired, but got out of service, um, with all his limbs, and pretty good mental faculties, created an enormous successful business, family of three, was coaching, and then he developed an infection in his spine. Went to the VA for a medical service, and they kept saying, "Oh, you just sprained your back." But he developed a high fever, shakes, became hallucinogenic, and it continued on for several weeks until his wife finally said, you need to go to a private medical facility just to get treated because they wouldn't even do blood work. And he had 104 fever. It just didn't make sense to the common person, I would think.
Yeah.
And they discovered that, yeah, they missed that he had this bone-eating infection in his spine. So it literally destroyed many of his organs and his spines. He almost died several times, excruciating pain. So through his struggles, of fighting with the VA and then finding out that, he lost his home, his job, and he was hoping that at least the VA would kind of help make him whole or somewhat whole so he could provide for his family at least. He wasn't looking for a big payday, but just provide, what was taken from him. So out of that, his frustration and his determination, because he is a Marine, he started just knocking on doors and going to Capitol Hill and introduced different legislation trying to get people involved to hold the VA accountable and change this law. And I gotta say, I mean, I'll make it shorter because it's a law. It was a couple, 2 years, 3 years um, mission, and we were fortunately got involved in the beginning with him, and it was written into law in December of 2020, and it's the VA Accountability Act. So now, if you are treated by a third party contractor through the VA and something that there's malpractice involved, they have to let you know right away. In Brian's case, they waited, like I said, 367 days to let him know he was treated by a non-VA employee, which run out all his, he missed his ability to go against the doctor in California. So any right he had to try to pursue legal action was taken away from him by no fault of his own, which is horrific.
Yeah.
So Brian persevered and he fought through every battle he could think of. I mean, through mental and physical pain. And he showed truly what, if you stick to your mission, what one person can do, because literally he was one person, then turned into this whole army, I would say, of people, but he never gave up.
Yeah.
And now he actually has a law on the books and his name. He actually had three bills in his name. They kind of combined them all, and eventually one was signed into law. But so we help with that legislation. We brought awareness to it. We reached out to congressmen and senators. So we help with those kind of things. It's any obstacle that's in someone's way, a veteran's way, we try to remove that obstacle if we can. So we are right now starting working with Guitars with Vets. I'm not sure if you've heard of that program. Music program that they provide, national program, but they provide a music program, free guitar lessons, a free guitar to veterans who are interested in learning how to play. And I know, and I'm sure music is very healing. Um,
That's the one biggest regret I will always have in my
See,
life.
that doesn't have to be a regret. You
I
get to
so
follow up now.
so when I was growing up, I was in a Christian middle school from third grade to eighth grade. And in third, fourth, and fifth grade, they made you play the recorder. And then fifth grade to eighth grade, they made you play the acoustic guitar. And I hated every minute of it. I just did this. And now I regret it all the time. I'm like, I would have, because I have so many friends of mine who do. I have so many friends of mine who love playing the guitar, and have shown me, how to play and stuff like that. But I
Yeah.
just like,
But it's not too late. And
okay.
that's what I just so I'm going to share a story with you.
Yeah.
Army veteran Adam Martin,
Okay.
when he transitioned out of service, combat veteran, his doctor told him, he was struggling with some PTSD and some traumatic brain injury, and his doctor told him, listen, this is your assignment. You need to take 30 days and learn a new hobby. I don't care what it is, but you need to learn something. And then you're going to report back to me and we'll see how your progress is. But it's about focus, retraining your mind to focus on something else.
Yeah.
Don't go, down the other rabbit holes or whatever else, when your mind's just idling.
Yeah.
It's a way just to try to learn something new. So Adam did, and then and he did it on the internet. That's all he did. He took free lessons, got a guitar, and learned how to play the guitar on the internet. So his wife told him after about 20 days, you know what, honey, you're kind of good. You're not bad. Because he picked it up, and he discovered he had no idea how much he enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
It sparked something in him.
Mm-hmm.
So then he started to kind of sing along with it, and his wife, kept being a great supporter that she is, said, you're doing good. So then he went back to his doctor and shared what he had learned over those 30 days and told him, I want to continue with this. This is something I really enjoy. And it gives him peace, it takes him to a place of joy. Um, and now Adam is award winning. He's with Blackbird Anthem. And they play all over the country. I do a lot of veteran charity events, but they also play at bars all over the country. And they do a lot of songs about what veterans go through. We actually had the wonderful opportunity to help them record a music video for the song that Adam wrote called 22. And it's about a veteran, fighting his demons, walking through the forest, thinking about taking his own life and then choosing not to. It's a very powerful song. I encourage everyone to look on YouTube for it. 22 by Blackbird Anthem. But that was Adam's story, is about how music healed his soul. It gave him something to look forward to. And now they just won music. Well, our video won Music Video of the Year through a indie kind of music group.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Josie Music Awards last year. They also won 2 years in a row the Southern Rock Band of the Year. Um, so again, he was like you. I wish,
Yeah.
I wish, I regrets, but you don't have.
Yeah.
You can, and now with the power of the internet, you can learn anything. Google it. You can, you know.
Yeah.
So, but music, we've heard this story time and time again. How music can touch your soul and heal.
Yeah.
And so that's why we thought, we're in Las Vegas. We're supposed to be the entertainment capital of the world, but we don't see any music programs here for veterans. So we decided to, hopefully in the fall we'll be starting a Guitar for Vets program here in partnership with one of our local vet centers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that way we'll be able to provide free guitar lessons and guitars for anyone interested, any veteran interested in Las Vegas who wants to take a chance, and find that particular passion. But there's
It's
so
awesome.
many. There's painting. I mean, the Air Force offers through their Warrior Foundation a creative painting classes. We've learned about, well, like Yahira. So, for instance, for trauma yoga. I mean, I've talked to many veterans. Hey, you need to take this class. I swear, it's life changing. And I don't know if you've done it yet. I know you said
No,
you
I
were maybe.
haven't.
But I tell you this only because, so I'm a big girl and I have bad knees and playing sports and neck. I have all kinds
Yeah.
of issues. And I took her class because before I could tell someone, suggest it to
Yeah.
somebody,
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to try it out because that's not right. And so I took it with a group of veterans, and it truly was inspired. You just got to really take introspection into yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and what it offered to you just mentally was wonderful. And I felt so much better afterwards, also physically. So I truly saw the difference. And now that, so we sponsor veterans, first responders, a chance to have a private yoga session with Yahira. So that way we're removing those obstacles again, taking away, I can't afford it or I don't want to,
Yeah.
and hopefully it will inspire them to continue on and try.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're trying to do, get obstacles out of the way, because unfortunately with the VA, and I'm not a VA basher, because I know there are amazing people that work in the VA, a lot of really good people.
Mm-hmm.
There's things that need to change, absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
um, but they can't provide. There's no way they're going to be able to provide everything anyway.
Yeah.
So we need to find ways to help, you know, fill in the blanks and fill in the opportunities for veterans that are active duty. And I just can't. think of a better way than, I don't know. I feel, and maybe I'm sure you feel the same way, that when we give back to someone, that it fuels your soul. And we try to share that with veterans that, listen, find something. For instance, Team Rubicon is an organization, national organization. They usually respond to emergencies across the country and internationally. And typically it's groups of veterans that have signed up and had training. But it's a very impactful way to not only give back to your community, but give back to yourself. And I think it provides veterans with the opportunity to have a new mission. So they know they're fighting the good fight a different way than the military, but you're
Yeah.
still fighting that good fight. Recently, we worked with a local EOD warrior, retired, but he was working in the civilian world, still as a private contractor, and he had some few issues. And he said that during COVID, he had the opportunity to work with Team Rubicon because they deployed Team Rubicon to the different medical centers and National Guard centers to provide the shots and that sort of thing, or just assist the medical communities with all the ill people.
Yeah.
And he was part of that, and he said, that saved him through some dark times because he was
Hmm.
really having struggling during the isolation of COVID, and it got him out of his house. But it also, more importantly, he was able to help others. And so we just try to, Team Rubicon. There's Merging Vets and Players, another national organization. They're here in Las Vegas, Chicago, Los Angeles, but they work out every Friday at Randy Couture's gym. And it's just about, again, your physical activity, but more importantly, it's a connection again, that here you are with your brothers and sisters who know what you've been through.
Yeah.
You can have similar experiences or even different experiences because every experience is different, really. But same ideology usually, and they usually afterwards have a chat session, sit around and just talk, and it's a great resource because I know they know it's a safe place where they can talk, and no one's going to judge them because they've all been through it. And that's what we need. We need to create more safe
Hmm.
spaces that you can feel comfortable to go to. And that's why we created Social Dirt Cantina.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you about that for
Yeah,
the audience. So
it really.
just so everybody knows, where are you right now?
So we're in the back. We live in an acre in Las Vegas, out in the rural area,
Hmm.
and my husband built a shop, a 2,500 square foot shop in the back, um, to hold toys or whatever, whatever's there. My daughter used to race, so we have a race truck, but it kind of, I don't know. He wanted a big man cave. It was supposed to be a lot smaller, but you know how that goes. So going down to Baja and helping out race teams, they discovered a shop had this cantina inside of it,
Hmm.
and it was just a cool place. All the racers stopped by, had a beer, chatted, and it was about the conversations, not necessarily the beer,
Yeah.
conversations that were being had.
Hmm.
Old school racers were talking about the olden days. New school racers were talking about how they were doing, and it just was a great place to connect. So they came home. Him and his buddies came home and said, can we do this? And I'm going, I don't know. That sounds like expensive, but then we talked about the connection, and I thought, you know what? It'd be the perfect place for people just to stop by so they can know, hey, we're going to go to the Burgos house and go to the cantina. And that's what it turned into once it got finished. And it was built by blood, sweat, and tears, not only my husband and our friends, but also active duty guys here in Las Vegas and some veterans that worked so hard to put this amazing place together. But what happened is we discovered, in fact, a first responder, a local police officer who'd been retired about 20, I think 25 years from our local police department. And his girlfriend told me, he doesn't really get out of the house. He even said, I don't like to really go out much. I'm a loner. I like to stay at home and hang out. So he came over one night to drop something off, and then he stayed for 4 or 5 hours. The next day, he stopped by again, and it continued every day. And he told us that, you know what? I've never felt safe in a place really, where I truly felt comfortable, where I could just relax,
Hmm.
say whatever I wanted to say, and no one was going to judge me.
Yeah.
and that's what this has turned into.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so it's kind of, yeah, it's this really cool place that we're really proud of, and it just naturally, occurred. Not, it wasn't made to be that kind of thing, but
Yeah.
I'm so happy that it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome that and what's and behind you, can't really see
So
it, but what's that?
that's, can you see it?
Yeah, I
God,
see it
that's
now.
our
Yeah.
memorial wall. So that's what's truly, I have to say, one of the most important things for me as part of our mission. And I always get emotional talking about it because that the wall represents several of our veterans and active duty who've lost to military suicide.
Mm,
And their families shared those photographs with us. When we started the wall, it was really because we go to wherever they'll let us put a booth at, we'll go to just raise awareness,
yeah.
and let people know. So that's why we created the wall and to honor those we've lost to suicide because it's not highlighting what they did. It's not about how they died, it's how they served our country.
Mhm.
And 90% of the people on that wall died from the wounds of serving our country. Many of them were deployed. They made it home, but they didn't really make it home.
Yeah.
So we honor them through this wall because it really resonates. Like I said in the beginning, when you say the word 22 and suicide, we lose that many. It kind of glosses over people. It really, even I say civilians, but also we've been to several events where military families, especially active duty families, were, and the parents come up and look at the wall, and then we talk to them, and they go, "Well, they had no idea. They had no idea of the suicide rate." So we try to, we explain that with this wall, but more importantly, we're telling the stories because these are fathers, mothers,
Yeah.
brothers, sisters, daughters, sons,
Yeah.
and the people left behind. That's who it really is for because as we lost our dear friend, and it's still a hole in our heart. We'll
Yeah.
never, but I think our biggest fear, and I think it's everyone's biggest fear when they lose a loved one, is that they'll be forgotten.
Yeah. And
You know,
yeah, and that's another one of the things that I'm aiming to do is find people, like one of my episodes that I did earlier on in the beginning was for Corporal Dan Baltasari. I had he died in a plane crash. And it was an accident, it was a freak accident initially that happened, but just due to people not doing their job, something that could have been avoided. So I had his recruiter on, talking about how he ended up joining the military, talking about his just how it felt to be that recruiter. And then I ended up sharing that episode with his dad. His dad, was so thankful for it. And then I'm gonna actually I met dad the next day,
right?
and sat down at dinner with dad to shared stories about his son. So eventually we're gonna get dad on to do an episode in memorial of his son. Because and I'm trying to get a hold of some of the people that just recently passed away, um, because of the attack. But because I have a close friend of mine, his wife knew one of the sergeants that died, one of the female sergeants. I think it's Sergeant Rosario. Um, they were in the Marine Corps together. They went to MOS school together. They were corporals together. So she's going to come on the episode and she's going to talk about, who she was as a person. Because like you said, and a lot of the people that recently died had children. One of them had a newborn baby on the way that was just born the other day. And unfortunately, that child is, they're going to hear stories from mom, but they're not going to hear stories from their brothers and sisters. They're not going to know, they'll never know dad's history in the Marine Corps, or in the Navy or whatever branch it is. So if we can have Marines who come on here and talk about who they are as a person and who they were, then their memory won't be forgotten, and you'll be able to share those laughs that you really would never be able to hear because that person's gone. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to, that's one of the things I'm trying to do as well, with my episodes like in the past of Pat's Purpose, talking about how Pat died from cancer, and I have his squad leader comes on and talks about his memory and then some of their funny stories. um but that's really all it is, and I think a huge thing too, and a lot of people have that. I remember it happened when I was on recruiting duty. We When I was on recruiting duty, there was a Marine who committed suicide, and the Marines in the office walked in the next morning to find him hanging in the office. Like he was the Marine had hung himself in the office, and at first it was like we had a stand down. Like moments later, it was a phone call where all of us had to get on a conference call, and it was like that awkward, like, hey, what's going on, and we get the words and they tell us, and then like an hour later it's like we were all back to work. And then like and then like you were saying, like, our I don't want to speak for them, but our command, they did like a memorial service like a month and a half, 2 months later. And and some of the Marines felt, and that's the thing, is like you have so many mixed feelings, like some Marines are like, oh well, you're memorializing it. Some Marines are like, oh no, you're not. And it's like, well, that family still deserves something. Like
Absolutely.
no one, and again, you don't know what anyone was going through, and and so, but at the time, like the Marine Corps, like a lot of the Marines were like, okay, like this happened, and then an hour later it was back to business, find the next guy. And it was like, and it sucked for a lot of those guys, because a lot of them, they didn't get a new building. They had
Right.
to still recruit in that same building. And I feel for that office, that lost him, and for that family, because he was, he had a wife and kids. And that's the thing, is that, like, it's it's something that whether or not you agree, whatever, at the end of the day, it's just about that family deserves it. What No matter how you feel about the situation, that
Yeah.
mother, that daughter, those children, they deserve to know, those memories that they lost now. And it's something that I really want to be able to help out with, and I'm glad that you're doing that as well. And that's, it's an awesome thing you're doing. Everything that you've said this far is so awesome. Because, and it's great that you've created, a place where people can come and they feel comfortable. Because, like, like for instance, my uncle lives out in Colorado, and he was an Army Ranger, back in Vietnam. And he, or Gulf War, I forget, but he's older, and he suffers from alcoholism. And he'll straight out tell my uncle, because my uncle never deployed. My other uncle, his brother was never in the military. So
Okay.
my uncle would just be like, hey, listen, man, like, I'm not going to tell you about anything that happened over there, because he just feels like he can't. But he'll talk to my brother, or he'll talk to me about it, because we're both in the military. But a lot of people feel like they can't talk to anybody because you don't understand, or you won't understand me, or you look at me differently, or if I tell you, the things that I think, you're gonna think one way of me. So it's really phenomenal, that you guys did that, and that people are, and it's like, and like you said, you didn't do it,
Mm-mm.
it happened.
Yeah.
And then going back to what you were saying, it's an awesome thing, because, and we all feel the same way. You're always searching to fill that void. There's always that void you're trying to fill, and then once you start giving to other people, you realize, like, that's what you're meant to do. We're meant to do that as people, is to give and to give and to give. And it's an awesome thing that you guys are doing. So what do you guys have, any like up and coming things, or do you guys have any like future goals in mind? Like, what's next for you guys?
Well, we do have actually, it's not our event, it's called the Hump and Bump, which is an
Okay.
off-road event out here in Logandale, Utah, put on by Vegas Valley Four Wheelers. And it's like their big event they've done every year. It's 4 days full of trail rides again. They have a vendor hall, all kinds of events in the evening, a big, huge s'mores campfire, karaoke contest. So we're taking another group of veterans and active duty to this event. We're renting an RV, so everybody has a bed, providing on the meals, and just a great way to hang out in the outdoors, experience something they've never experienced for most of them, and again, to make those connections. So that's Halloween weekend. We also are going to be doing on December 4th with the EOD Warrior Foundation. They have it's just called the EOD Cycling Series. There's 4 different cycling events across the country. It's a charity event raised in order to raise funds to help provide financial and other support for their EOD Warrior uh, wounded and their families. So we've partnered them with pre-COVID 2019 for an event out here, and we're doing that again. We're very honored to participate with them. It's an excellent organization. So we'll be doing that, providing what other support we can do at that event. We also are doing a UTV ride in December. We did it last year, kind of like it's a ride. We invite people out to join us. We have a lot of volunteers that bring out their UTVs, which is, I don't know if you know what a UTV is, but it's like a four-wheeler kind of vehicle. Usually has 2 to 4 seats in it, off-road vehicle, but not like a truck. I don't know if you can see this. Maybe you can see it. Can you see that vehicle there?
Yeah.
Maybe. So that's a UTV.
Oh, okay.
So we have people bring all those kind of vehicles out, and we plan a course or a trail ride, and then we usually have a big barbecue. And then it's also we gather toys. Everybody brings a toy, and we donate those toys to the Veterans Village, or actually it's Share Village here in Las Vegas, which is mainly a place for veterans and civilians to go that are homeless, find themselves homeless. And so we bring the toys there as well as provide them to the lower income neighborhoods here in Las Vegas. The police department in North Las Vegas has a whole substation or a whole community that they know during the holidays the children really don't have that many gifts. So they do their own toy ride, our toy drive, and then when they go out on the call or when they're out in the community, they hand out toys. So we were very happy to help support that initiative, and we'll be doing that again in December. We also will be doing a so the Mint 400, a huge off-road race. It's one of the most famous races in the country. It's here in Las Vegas. And so what we have also done in conjunction with our memorial wall is, so we have hundreds of photographs that aren't on this wall. Because unfortunately, we've lost 30,000 to suicide since 9/11. And that number is probably not accurate. But so we go to different events, especially off-road events, and the participants will take one of our photographs, which we have the story, like this gentleman right here, Michael Mananudo. Can you see that all right?
Yeah, I can see it now. Yep.
And then it has a little bit of information what his family has shared. We
Mm-hmm.
provide that to the participant who's going into that event, and then they race with them. They dedicate their race to this individual, honoring
Oh,
them for their
wow.
service, but also making sure they're not forgotten. So we put the poster picture. So we take a photograph of the
Mm-hmm.
team or the driver and this warrior's photograph, post it on our social media platforms, and then tag the family and friends of them so they know, listen, this total stranger is honoring your loved one. It's going to make sure that they won't be forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns into, I can tell you, it turns into one of the most beautiful things because the people start communicating, the families talk to the drivers and their teams through social media,
Yeah.
and it creates another network.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it lets these families know, and that again, I have to say, that's what they want most, is their loved ones to be remembered.
Yeah.
I spoke to a young woman here, actually her son. First, let me tell you really about Michael real quick.
Yeah.
So Michael was a Disney film star. He was in the movie as a child, Miracles, that highlighted, our hockey team that won the
Oh,
gold medal.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
That was Michael.
Oh,
He
wow.
started it. He was one of the stars on that. And then he decided that he did very well in acting, but decided he wanted to serve his country, became a Green Beret, and deployed on several missions. Unfortunately, he came home um, and succumbed to the invisible wounds, of war. So we lost him in 2017. Um, this mom, so Matthew LeBlanc, their family just relocated here to Las Vegas, a mom and daughter. Um, Kim is the mom, and Chesney Claire, or Chesney Herbert, is the daughter. She's actually an amazing singer, getting her career started. Chesney Claire. So we carried her son for the first time a couple of weeks ago. And Kim said, you know what? She wrote me. She goes, you know what? I thought the world had forgotten my son.
Mm-hmm.
I thought no one cared. And that hurt my heart, it hurt my heart so bad because I wanted to say, well, I told her, I said, listen, Kim, you have no idea how many people support and love. And now that they know about your wonderful son,
Yeah.
his memory will be carried on because as long as we keep saying their names, they are here. We
Mm-hmm.
share their stories, then they aren't gone. They're
Yeah.
here with us. So we shared him, and it's just every time we do that, whenever we can, people will just share him. Like a lot of our Jeep guys will call us and say, "Hey, can I take a photograph with me? We're going on a trail ride today." And they're just going on nothing's planned, not formal,
Mm-hmm.
but they want to make sure and honor. And then that happens almost every single day now. So it's turned into this huge movement, which is really near and dear to my heart because it means so much to the families that are left behind. The Matt's sister Chesney, well, actually, the mom, Kim, she recently wrote a song called "Wrapped in Your Flag," and it's all about the heartbreak, of losing a son and a brother, her big Chesney's big brother, and how she just wants to wrap in his flag that she was, given to him when they buried him,
Yeah.
and just cry, and that she's just sad because it's okay to be sad. We understand.
Yeah.
We're here for you. There's no timeline of grief. So many of our Gold Star families, a lot of time are told, when are you going to get over it? Things that are horrible. I would never say to another human, but they are told us constantly. It's time to get over it. You don't get over it. You find a
Yeah.
way to cope, and that's what we try to do. We're here for the living, but we're also here for the families left behind,
Yeah.
helping them cope to get through the next day.
Yeah.
Um, so it's yeah. So
And that's and it's very it's like I was saying to Corporal Dan Baldessari's dad, like when I decided I wanted to do one of the episodes and I wanted to, I have more coming out. I'm just waiting for the times to be right with the people. But like for him, it was like I had when I reached out to him because I wanted to make sure, hey, I could do the episode. I didn't want to like go ahead and do this and his dad not be like about it.
yeah,
Um, but like my thing was is that like his son had passed away in something that could have been preventable. If somebody had done their job right, if somebody had, checked the so essentially what happened was they were on a training mission, and they were flying and one of the blades on the plane was corroded and had corrosive damage on it, and it was annotated like 3 years ago, and no one fixed it, and eventually it just continued to warp, and eventually it just flew off and it hit the other side of the plane and it caused them to just spiral down. And they got the news from family members, and the story is, it's a sad story. But like when I had sat down with him, he asked me, he was like, well, why did you want to do this? Like, why did you even want to talk about my son? And because I had met his son in passing when he was joining the Marine Corps, and then I met him when he had just gotten promoted to corporal. So I only met Corporal Dan Baldassari like 2 or 3 times. But I always heard a lot of things about him from other people. I always heard his name. And then I was like, when I told his dad, I was like, well, the thing is that, when somebody dies, like when somebody joins the military, nobody thinks like and I asked the dad that, I was like, when your son joined, you and your wife were probably scared that at some point he'd come home in a body bag from Afghanistan or Iraq. Like you were
mhm,
never thinking in a million years that it would be a training accident that could have been prevented. And the reality of it is that, I believe if I'm correct, it was 13 Marines and one sailor that had died on that plane crash. Um, and all 14 of those people, it's like because of complacency, because somebody didn't, double check something, because, and I've been complacent. I'm not going to say I haven't, it's like, but now mind you, it's just, his son is, I don't want to say forgotten, but people don't talk about it. Like, yeah, at the unit, maybe they're like, hey guys, we're talking about safety, remember him. And, it's like, okay, well, what about the family? Because no, yeah, every year, they have, there's this memorial service. But then I started talking to the dad about it, and he was like, he's like, dude, you have no idea. He's like, you don't know like the amount of support that we get. There's a memorial service, there's a candle lighting ceremony, there's, people like one of the guys that Corporal Dan Baldassari was in boot camp with, when he passed away, the mother of the kid, I guess the mother of someone he was in boot camp with, had saw it on the news, and she ended up writing the dad a letter, just thanking the dad. She was like, "Listen, if it wasn't for your son, like my son would have never made it through boot camp. Like your son," and then the dad started getting all these letters from all these different
Wow.
people and stuff, and me and him were talking about it, and I think we'll never understand why things like this happen. We'll never know that, but the reality of it is that when things like this happen, it there's always that one common thing, and it brings people together, from all over the place, and like what you're doing, and what I'm doing, and what I'm attempting to do, you know and that's what it's all about. It's all about giving
Absolutely.
back. It's all about not forgetting them. Like right now, you just shared those warriors' names, and now when I drop this episode, how many more people are going to hear those names and then look them up and go on Google, and then and
And then
then
so they
they're
live on. I mean, they're
yeah,
living. They really. I mean, they are. Like I said, it's true. If we keep saying their names and sharing their stories, then they're here with us.
yeah,
They're certainly in our hearts.
yeah,
We may not be able to see them, touch them physically, but they're here as long as we keep talking about them. And that's what the families, need and want. And I think it helps too. It helps in suicide prevention because people can relate. We can hopefully someone who's maybe going through the same kind of emotions or going through the struggle can relate and see how it hurt that family so much.
yeah,
Because and I've heard this. Unfortunately, my mom tried to end her life several years ago, and just because she was just, I lost my brother out of the blue for crazy reasons and had no idea. And my mom was older, and she had told me that she was just sad and she missed my brother. It's not about they don't when they're in that moment, those few moments. It's not about hurting anybody around them. They're not even focusing on they're just focused on their pain and
yeah,
how they can eliminate their pain. Or often they feel like a burden, like they're putting a burden on someone, and that they'd be better off not here, so
hmm,
that their families or their loved one, their friends could just go on. So we try to share these experiences. That's not what happens. See how these families are suffering. You don't want your family or your friends to suffer that way. You do matter, and let's show you how you matter. Um, so it all correlates, and hopefully, we can prevent suicide. We can also remember and honor those we've lost, and also change the conversation because the stigma, and just so even just the word using commit suicide is really a very negative tone because when a family who's lost someone to suicide hears that word, often they feel like it's a crime, and no matter how, some people feel like it's a crime, but we have to, it's not about us, it's about the loved ones, the people that are left behind.
yeah,
So when we say, well, he committed suicide, well, no, he died by suicide. Let's put it that way. I think it's a much better way, and it's not something I invented. It's something that's been told through different groups, support groups, TAPS, talks about it. The suicide prevention groups talk about changing the conversation too, the words we use when we talk about suicide.
yeah,
So it's important, and every single one of us can make a difference. We all can just be there for someone. It doesn't take this huge acts of heroism or volunteering your whole life, but if we're just there for someone and have conversations with each other, and um, it can mean the world of difference.
yeah, definitely. Well, I just want to say thank you. I definitely now have to fly out to Vegas
Yes.
to come hang out with you guys. Now I feel compelled to. And I just want to thank you so much for what you're doing. And like I said, it's especially because of the fact that when I started this podcast, it was if I started it off like, hey, I'm going to talk with two veterans, and it's going to be a veteran-based podcast. But you're not a veteran, and that's the best part. It's great to see people like yourself who you're just taking care of people around you, the community around you, those that you love and those that you lost along the way. And it's just beautiful to see what you're doing for your community and the people around you. And I just want to thank you for that. I really do, really,
Thank
like,
you.
from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate that, because we need more people like that. Especially with everything going on in the world right now. There's so many negative things every single day. And like, when I was a recruiter, that was a lot of that what I would try to tell parents, is you only see the negative, you don't see the positive that's coming out of these things. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, again, when we're talking about suicide, like, there's a lot of negative towards it, but then we look at the positives of what it's created. And I know it's, no one wants to think about it like that, but it's the reality of it. There are a lot of positive things coming from it, a lot of change is going to happen.
Yeah,
And the more and more we talk about it, the more and more, we're just going to be able to make those changes, and make sure people realize, like, hey man, talk about the problem, because it's not a problem. It's more of a problem when you don't talk about it.
absolutely.
So again, just thank you so much. Before I end this, is there anything that you want to leave us with? Is there anything that oh, well, most importantly, how do we find you? Do you have a website? What's the best way to get more information from your nonprofit?
Well, we're actually we're on social media, so we're on Facebook at Race to Race 22.
Okay.
That's where we post a lot of our information, and our contact information is there, as well as we're on Instagram. We're working on a website, but those are very time consuming, so that's tough to do. But yeah, you can reach out to us there. Our email's there. My phone number's on there. My husband's phone number. So, anybody who wants to reach out, if there's something you are interested in or have a question, contact us, because we may not have the answer right now, but we can do the research, and find you that whatever you're seeking,
Okay.
because it's there. I can tell you, there the possibilities are endless. We just have to get them to those possibilities, and that's why I think it's just important that we're there for each other, and that social media can be an evil place, but we can use it for good. And we
Yeah.
found that we can by sharing the stories. We even share missing when someone's missing, whether active duty or a veteran. We use that as a call for help, and we share it amongst the country and hope other people share it. And I can tell you, we've located people that way.
That's awesome.
But people don't think about that. It's all about the evil part of it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
let's change that scenario, make it for good,
Yeah.
and that's what we do. So I just want people to remember there is hope. Tomorrow is a brand new day. So if today sucked, it's okay. We're gonna get through tomorrow, and
Yeah.
we're here to help you get through to tomorrow.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you again so much. I hope you have a good rest of the evening.
And thank you for what
And
Benny. Thank you for what you do too, because that's it's important. Because veterans have a tendency to listen to other veterans.
yeah,
And I think by you sharing all the information out there and continue sharing stories, that is so important. That continue on, man, because that's
yeah.
awesome.
Thank you. All right. Well, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.